back to the channel. Today we're here for week 4 NFL picks and predictions. I'm here to give my first predictions video of the season. I did this pretty much every week last season. Last season we went 186 and 84 on the season, which is about a 69% win rate on the year. And this season we're doing a little bit better. I'm at a 72% win rate on the year, 34 and 13 so far. I've still been making my picks on ESPN Pigskin Pick'em site, which is a site I recommend. I'm not sponsored or anything, obviously, but it's a good site to make your picks on the yearly. So let's get into it. I'm going to give you guys kind of my upsets first, right off the bat here, to make things kind of more interesting. So first I have Pittsburgh winning this game against the Vikings. Both of these teams are coming into this game 2-1. This game is going to be played in Ireland. It's an international game. And when you're looking at international games, I really like to look at the coaches in these matchups just to see, who's kind of the more well-coached team. But I would say both of these teams are really well-coached. I still think that Mike Tomlin is, a very good coach in this league still. So, and then you're looking at Carson Wentz, who's going to be probably starting this game for the Vikings. I wouldn't expect J.J. McCarthy to be out there, at least probably out another week, I would say. But Wentz was efficient last week versus the Bengals. He got the ball out to 6 different targets. He was good. He looked comfortable, which is probably the most important thing. Obviously, he didn't need to do a lot in that game to win that game, but he was good nonetheless. So that's a good sign. In this game, though, I am taking Pittsburgh. It's pretty much because of Rodgers. I trust him more than I do Wentz at the end of the day. I know that Minnesota has definitely the better team, better weapons and skill players and all that. And I will say I really don't love the Steelers, rushing attack or receiving core for that matter. And the pass rush of the Vikings does scare me a little bit. If, Rodgers starts getting sacked, starts getting pressured, I think that that's going to create problems for the Steelers. But I am going to take Rodgers here. I think that experience really is going to be a big thing in this game. And I just trust him more in this atmosphere. Give me Pittsburgh to win that game. Only 40% of people picking them. So let's move on to the next upset I have here. The next one being the Buccaneers over the Eagles. Only 21% of people have the Buccaneers right now, and that's understandable. I actually had the Eagles losing last week, too. I had the Rams beating them, and that was a very, very close one. Came down to the very end of the game. I think that this is kind of a similar matchup in a way to the Eagles and Rams game last week. I think the Buccaneers, they got a good quarterback. They've got good weapons. They've got a solid defense. I think this is going to be a tough team in the Buccaneers to beat. This is going to be their second consecutive home game for the Buccaneers. So I think that makes a big difference, staying at home for 2 weeks. I think a big thing in this game, it kind of goes without saying, you got to limit Saquon in this game. I think the way to beat the Eagles is you got to make Hurts beat you with his arm. And I think if it turns into that kind of, shootout, I like Baker to win this game. One thing to keep an eye out in this game, though, I will say, is the injuries. It looks like Mike Evans might not play in this game with a hamstring. But it kind of does look like Goodwin and Wirfs will be back. It's in the air right now, but I would expect those two to be back, so that those are big pieces of the team, of course. And one thing I didn't love last week is the Bucs kind of fell apart a little bit to the New York Jets in the fourth quarter defensively. I think there's some questions to be had with Todd Bowles. But nonetheless, I think, there's good value there in that Buccaneers pick. Then we move on to the Chiefs over the Ravens. This game is going to be in Arrowhead, which is a big reason I'm picking the Chiefs. They haven't won a game there yet this season. Only 24% of people are picking the Chiefs right now. And I am a little bit hesitant, of course, to pick the Chiefs. They're not the same Chiefs that we've seen. There's obviously no Rashee Rice, no Xavier Worthy. To me, the running game has been pretty lackluster with Pacheco and Hunt, aging players there. So is Travis Kelce. I mean, he's still a good player. He's still going to give you some production, but he's not the player that he once was. And then another reason I actually have the Chiefs winning, though, this game is they have a day's rest on the Ravens. I think that that's a big deal. There's not a lot of science here for me in terms of picking the Chiefs. But, I mean, historically, this is a team that just knows how to win games. I know they haven't really done it that much this season, but I think they start to kind of get the ball rolling, and I expect them to win this game, in Arrowhead. Now we're looking at my next upset here. I have the Cowboys over the Packers. Only 13% of people have the Cowboys right now. I understand that. But both of these teams are coming off of upset losses. Obviously, the Packers to the Browns, and then the Cowboys to the Bears. So both of these teams are kind of in a similar place in a way. To me, this is a true 50-50 pick 'em. I know only 13% of people are picking the Cowboys, but I'm really not as sold on Love as a lot of people are. I do like Love. I think he's a good quarterback, but I don't know. I think Dak is probably a little bit better. I think that the experience that he has, that Dak Prescott has, serves him well in this game. It's going to be a game in Dallas, Sunday Night Football. So I like the Cowboys in this game. One thing I will say, the defense for Dallas has not been good. Um, the deep ball has been really effective against this defense, and I think that if Jordan Love can, throw the ball deep here, I think there's a very good chance that they can win this game if Love can exploit that. We've seen that in the past few couple of games against the Giants and Russell Wilson. There were some deep balls that got past the Dallas defense. Same with the Chicago game. So keep an eye on that. But I do like the Cowboys in that game. Give me the value at 13%. So those are all my upsets. The rest are going to be just the rest of my picks here. So let's go back to the top here. Thursday night football. Seahawks 2-1, Cardinals 2-1. Give me the Seahawks to win this game. I think that for both of these teams, the defense has been the strength of the season so far, and definitely over the offense for both of these teams. And you're looking at the Cardinals. They lost, in heartbreaking fashion last week to the 49ers. And then they also lost, their star running back in James Conner. So that's heartbreaking as well, of course. Probably one of the biggest losses of the season, I would say, up to this point. But ultimately, Kyler hasn't been good enough. The defense has been, good. The defense has been good for this Cardinals team. It was probably good enough to win them that game last week. They should have. It's really fallen on the offense. It's not all on Kyler. There's been a lot of drops with this Cardinals team. You're looking at their third down conversion rate at 5 for 15, which is just not good enough. So they got to clean up some things on offense. I think they can. I think it's going to be tough, though, with James Conner. I think that he added a lot to your offense. So without him, things are going to be tough. And then you're looking at the Seahawks defense, which is pretty good too. It's only allowed 17 points or less to the first three opponents. I know not all their opponents have been great, but it's been a good defense too. It's been the highlight of their team probably thus far. Darnold has looked good though too. And right now I'm probably going to take Darnold, who I would guess is probably a little bit healthier. He only threw the ball 18 times last week. Didn't even really have to throw it that many times when he's thrown the ball 55 times in the first 2 weeks of the season. And he's got weapons. He's gotten Jigba. Cup has been good. I didn't really expect that, but and then you add the familiarity with the NFC West opponents, and even the rookie Horton has been looking good for the Seahawks. So I like the direction the Seahawks are moving in. Give me them to beat the Cardinals. I will say though, it's a short week, and I think this home field advantage for Arizona is actually a pretty decent home field advantage. But give me the Seahawks as an away win there. Then we move on. I'm going to try to go through this a little bit faster here. The Commanders 2-1 at the Falcons 1-2, and I just cannot pick the Falcons. I can't even touch this game really. I don't even want to pick this game, but give me the Commanders to win this game. I don't know if Jaden Daniels is going to be starting. He's got a sprained knee, which is definitely a significant injury. But Mariota, he can still win you games. We saw that last week versus the Raiders. I think he's probably one of the better backups in this league. So you like to see that for the Commanders. But just the way the Falcons got blown out last week by the Panthers, I just can't touch it. I think it's probably kind of a coaching issue for Atlanta. I know Raheem Morris is a defensive-minded head coach. So I guess you put the blame on the offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson. But really, I've looked at their games. The offense, there's not a lot of creativity there in the play calls. There's a lot of check downs. Penix kind of didn't even look all that prepared. He kind of looked a little bit confused at moments in the game. The run game kind of feels abandoned at points in the game as well. And, there's too much talent on that offense with Bijan and Drake London and Kyle Pitts for them to, put up a nothing burger in that game. So give me the Commanders, even though they're another away team there. Then you got the Saints at the Buffalo Bills. Give me the Buffalo Bills. I feel bad for Alvin Kamara, who's one of the best players in this league, playing on the Saints. They still got him. And, Rattler might be able to give you a couple of good games in a season. But give me Buffalo. One thing I will say about Buffalo, Josh Allen's playing at an MVP level. James Cook is playing amazing football as well. I think he's one of the better backs in this league. But one thing I don't love about the Bills that I think is going to come back to bite them is the receiving core. They signed Josh Palmer this offseason, and that was their big receiver signing. It's not all that great to me, so I think that that's going to come back to them. But moving on, we go to the Browns at the Lions. Give me the Lions, kind of another easy pick. Simply put, Joe Flacco is just not good enough. He's going to get you some yards, but he's going to give you some interceptions too, and I just don't think he has a lot of help. I mean, his best receiver right now is Jerry Jeudy, and Njoku's a good player too, but I mean, he needs more help, and I don't even think there's a great running room right now. I mean, Judkins, the rookie, has looked pretty solid for the Browns in the last couple of weeks, but I just think overall it's kind of a talent-deficient offense. I mean, their defense is good, but I expect the Lions to just kind of get away with this one, and they should be able to score enough points. I know this Browns defense is good, but I mean, you got to just give up at a certain point when your offense can't really keep up. And then you got the Panthers at the Patriots. I've been surprised. I've been surprised with how sloppy the Patriots have been. They could have easily won that game last week versus the Steelers. I think there's definitely some growing pains with the new coach, Mike Vrabel, who's a fantastic coach. I love Mike Vrabel. I think that's a fantastic signing, but there's going to be growing pains. And I would say roster for roster, the Panthers and the Patriots are very similar. I personally like May more than Bryce Young. And then you're looking at a big factor here. There's going to be a second consecutive home game for the Patriots here. I think that plays a big part in this. Having 2 weeks in a row at home is a huge thing. Give me the Patriots to win that game. They need that game. They've been sloppy, but, they have the ability to win some games this season. They do. Then you have the Chargers at the Giants. My Chargers, 3-0. You love to see it, but you hate to see Najee Harris out for the season. You hate to see Mekhi Becton go down, one of our better offensive line players, especially when Slater is already gone for the season. But you love the fact that you're 3-0 in the division, and that Herbert is playing at an MVP level. And the defense is, they've picked up from where they were last year. They were the number one scoring defense in the NFL last year, and they've really picked up where they left off. A big reason for that is Jesse Minter, the defensive coordinator for the Chargers, who is fantastic and is probably going to get a lot of head coaching offers next offseason. And then you add Keenan Allen coming back to this team, a great addition. Quentin Johnson, who I have never loved, but he's super involved this season, so you have to give the coaching staff credit for getting him involved. And then all of a sudden, last week versus the Broncos, tight end Gadsden, the rookie that you picked up in like the 4th, 5th, or 6th round, he introduced himself to the league last week. I think the Chargers may have a tight end moving forward. So the Chargers are in a good place, very good place, probably the best place that I've ever seen them. And then you're looking at the Giants, who, obviously they're going through quarterback turmoil. Skidaboo, however you say his name, the running back, the rookie running back, he's your leading rusher, but he's also your leading receiver. So last week, so that's not a good sign. And obviously Malik Neighbors is your best threat right now, but he did nothing versus the Chiefs. I know he got a little bit banged up last week versus the Chiefs, but I think that Derwin James is going to lock him down, and I just think that this Giants team is going to have nowhere to go. This is too good of a defense ultimately for the Chargers. So, yeah, give me the Chargers to win that game pretty convincingly there. But, yeah, we move on to the Colts at the Rams. Give me the Rams in that game. I have to see the Colts prove it because I know they're a good team and they've looked good in the first 3 weeks. But this, to me, is a real test. I know they've played some good teams in the first 3 weeks too. But in Los Angeles against the Rams, this is a big-time matchup. And I want to see Daniel Jones do it on the big stage before I can, pick them with any confidence. I think it's going to be a very tough test for him because this is probably one of the better front sevens that he's going to play all season long. The Rams, they got Turner, Verse, they got Fisk, they got guys out there. So this is going to be a tough game for them. The Rams, they kept Saquon Barkley kind of at bay last week, and I think they can do the same with Jonathan Taylor. So give me the Rams in this game. Yeah, give me the Rams. One thing I will say about the Colts, though, I think a big reason for their success maybe this year, and I almost don't even want to say it, but it's the passing of Jim Irsay, the owner of this team. The Colts are kind of entering a new era, and this kind of feels like a fresh start for the team. So I think this is good for the team. I like the direction that the Colts are going in as well. You got the Jaguars and the 49ers. Give me the 49ers. I just got news that Nick Bosa is out for the season, and that's a huge, huge blow. But once again, this is another team that I can't really pick it until I see it. The Jaguars, I just can't pick them with any confidence, really. I think the 49ers are the better coached team, even with Mac Jones at quarterback. Um, yeah, I don't know. The Jaguars just been sloppy. There's been a lot of drops. I think they're lead the league in drops, and the offense is top 10 in offensive penalties as well. So there's definitely some growing pains as well with this new head coach and Liam Cohen for the Jaguars, who I think was kind of a little bit of a controversial hiring. But I do have to say the defense of the Jaguars has been pretty decent. The only real glaring issue was against the Bengals when Joe Burrow was playing and they really couldn't contain Jamar Chase, but really who can? So they've been a relatively good defense in the first 3 weeks. But I just trust the coaching more for the 49ers. Once again, this is another team that is playing their second consecutive home game, which helps a lot in my opinion. And the 49ers, they got to be feeling good after being 2-0 in the division, beating the Seahawks already and the Cardinals. And I just think I really like Robert Saleh on the defense. I think that he's been the difference, for this defense for the 49ers. Obviously, Bosa is a huge, huge blow, but I think Saleh's a guy that's going to get these guys to play some good defense, and I think he's another guy who's going to get a lot of head coaching offers in the upcoming offseason. So I think those are all the games. I might have missed a couple, but this video is getting a little bit long, so thank you guys for joining me. I'm going to get back to making more predictions this season. Thank you guys for liking, subscribing, commenting, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out.